Hey guys, welcome to the first anatomy video. And as you can see, just so that you can follow along if you want to, I am on Class Kick, slide number 66, right there. Not sure why I colored it in because we don't need to keep it there. But here we go. I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview, and it might not be so quick, but I'm going to try and make it quick. As you can see, I have put some slides from your notes on here, just so that we can stay focused. And I made myself a little schedule up here so that I can stay on track, because you know I'm really good at staying on track. But I'm gonna try, and here we go. So just as a little review, because that's the first thing on our schedule up here, just as a little review, let's take a look at this slide. We are covering the endocrine system, and we talked the last day we were out at school, we talked about the endocrine system is best friends with the nervous system, and both of them are responsible for controlling. And the way they control is a little bit different, but controlling nonetheless they do. So the nervous system does fast control with electrical signals sent by neurons. And the endocrine system uses hormones and is slow. So that's a pretty good review of what we've already talked about. And right now we're going to start looking at the endocrine system as a whole. So remember, endocrine, and I think I cut it off the top on this picture, but that's okay. Remember, the endocrine system, endocrine, means, remember, endo means inside. So these are glands located inside the body that secrete hormones. And remember, they secrete their hormones into the blood, which we'll cover in just a minute. Now, hormones control several processes, and once again, I hope you notice this word is here, control. So we're looking at controlling body processes, just like the nervous system does, but in a different way. Now, hormones are responsible for reproduction, growth and development, mobilization of body defenses, maintaining homeostasis, which the nervous system does too, and also metabolism. So if we look at each of these, I'm going to give you a second to come up with just a couple ways that hormones might control all of these. So the question I'm asking is, how do hormones control reproduction? Like, through what avenue? And then go down to the next one. How do hormones control growth and development? Through, like, give some examples. So I'm going to give you guys just a couple seconds to think about that and maybe jot down some notes. Okay, so hopefully you had a second to think about that. And once again, the question was, how do hormones control things like reproduction? Now, if you remember, or look down here, if you've already previewed and looked ahead at this slide, if we go down here to our model, put some clothes on them, if you look here, you'll notice that there's two endocrine glands listed, the ovaries and the testes. Now, obviously, you know the ovaries and the testes are responsible for reproduction. There are several hormones that are secreted that control changes needed for developing a baby, for instance. Also, the process of puberty is controlled by hormones. Let's look at growth and development. How do hormones control growth and development? Well, puberty is another good example. And also, hormones can control the rate of cellular mitosis. And if you remember, mitosis is when cells are dividing. And if cells are dividing quickly, that causes the organism to, you guessed it, grow. Let's look at the next one really quick. I'm going to get rid of some of that so I can write again. We'll leave mitosis up here so you guys don't forget. The mobilization of body defenses, that has to do with the lymphatic system. And your hormones will help your body identify foreign invaders, mobilize T cells to fight infections or bacteria. And this is a really big one considering we're doing e-learning from home. The maintenance of much of homeostasis, for example, hormones control blood sugar, the levels of sugar in your blood. So if you have taken PBS, you know all about diabetes and blood sugar and insulin and glucagon. That's also in HBS as well. But that would be maintaining homeostasis through hormonal control. The regulation of metabolism. Now, I'm assuming that if I asked you guys, which I can't, what metabolism is, you would tell me, like, that's just breaking down food. Which is actually only half of metabolism. So metabolism equals the breakdown plus the storing. So it's actually both of them together. Your rate of metabolism is how much do you break down and use of your energy, your food, and how much do you store. So it's kind of the net change of both of those two things. So that is what the endocrine system does overall. And really quick, I wanted to slide down here where I can draw and just talk about, actually, maybe we'll go down here to our model. I think that might be a better way to do it because there's some glands on here. So the glands in your body work in see if I'm kind of skipping ahead here. I think I am. Yeah, I am, but that's okay. Okay, so the glands in your body actually work in a hierarchical fashion. And I know we have talked about this before, but we're going to apply hierarchy to the endocrine system. So if we look at our model here, if you look up here in the brain, you can see this little area right here. And if we zoom out a little bit, we can see that there's this little piece right here. And I'll make those go away so you guys can see a little bit better. There's this little piece right here, and that is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is a hybrid. It's a brain gland. So it's made of some neural tissue and some glandular tissue. And the reason the hypothalamus is so important is the hypothalamus is part of the brain, but directly controls something called the pituitary gland. Now, the pituitary gland is a gland, and it is referred to as the master gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland because the pituitary gland controls all of the other glands in the body. For instance, the pituitary gland controls the pineal gland. The pituitary gland also controls the thyroid and the adrenal glands and the parathyroid. So that is the hierarchy of the endocrine system. In other words, the hypothalamus controls the pituitary, and then the pituitary controls all the individual glands. Now, all the individual glands also secrete hormones out that control certain body functions. So let's look at this as a whole really quick. The pituitary gland secretes hormones to the pineal gland, and then the pineal gland will control certain body functions. For example, the pineal gland releases a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin causes you to go to sleep. Okay? So if you're going to sleep, your body is secreting melatonin. So in other words, it's actually called circadian rhythms. Like when you go to sleep, when you wake up, when you feel tired, when you don't feel tired. So what happens is the pituitary gland has something called indirect control over circadian rhythms. In other words, the pituitary gland can't secrete a hormone, can't secrete a hormone directly to control that body function, but it indirectly controls the body function by secreting hormones to the pineal gland. The pineal gland controls body functions directly. Ooh, it's not easy to write. Directly, because it directly secretes melatonin out to cells to cause your body to be tired or not tired. So if I asked you, does the pituitary gland have direct control over when you are tired or not? The answer is no, it has indirect control. Does the pineal gland have direct or indirect control? It has direct control because the hormone secreted is melatonin, which controls that body function. However, the pineal gland is what releases that, not the pituitary gland. But the pituitary gland says, hey, pineal gland, you better get to work, or back off because this person's too tired, whatever. So that is the hierarchy of the endocrine system. Let's scroll down just a little bit. I'm going to draw you guys a picture real quick so we understand the next part. Okay, so in your body you have some glands, and luckily glands just look like masses of tissue. They kind of look like adipose tissue. We'll draw a face on this one for fun. So this is a gland. And what do glands do all day? They secrete hormones. That's what they do. Hormones. And where do they secrete them? And I'm really hoping you're saying into the blood. And we covered this before you left as well. Why do they secrete them into the blood? Because the blood goes by all of your cells. So you have your cells down here. And you have a lot of cells in your body, otherwise known as like 4 trillion, which is a lot. I'm going to make that go away because I need the space. There we go. Okay, so what these hormones do is find or travel past something called target cells. Your hormones are looking for, and I'm going like this in the air, just so you know. They're looking, and by looking, I mean they're not really like looking, but they're just going by until they find one. They're looking for target cells. And a target cell is a cell that has a receptor site on the plasma membrane that is the same shape as the hormones that are traveling in the blood. So if you look here, this is a cell, although it looks like a bird. Okay, stop, Angie. Okay, so anyway, we have some hormones that are traveling through the blood. And right here, I'm going to zoom way in so I can label that. Right there is a receptor site. R-E-C-E-P-T-O-R. A receptor site. Now, here are two different hormones. If you see here, I didn't draw it very well, but the triangle will fit into this receptor site. Will the circle? No, the circle will not. So this is a target cell. This is a target cell. Sorry about that. For the triangle hormone, whatever it happens to be, because that will fit in this receptor site, but it is not a target cell for the circle hormone, because that will not fit in this particular receptor site. So it's kind of the same as a lock and key mechanism. In other words, there's only one key for a certain shape lock. And if they fit together, it unlocks. If it doesn't, it doesn't work. So that's how hormones work. If the hormone fits into the receptor site right here, then it can cause a change in the cell. And therefore, the cell is a target cell for that hormone. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Is it enough for a hormone to change one cell? What do you guys think? Is it enough for a hormone to find one target cell and cause a change to happen? So I'm assuming that you said no. What has to happen is your body has to have a lot of target cells and a lot of hormones acting to cause an overall change. That's why processes in your body like puberty are so slow, because it does take a long time for these hormones to build up in your blood, to find their awesome target cells, and to cause changes to happen in those cells. And you need lots of cells in order for those things to happen. All right, so let's go back up here and see what we've covered so far. I think I know where I'm at, but I want to make sure. All right, so we did a review, check. Glands, hormones, blood type. Ooh, we did that too. Look at me go. And we did the hierarchy, so we just need to look at these slides really quick. This should be pretty quick. Now, I know you guys are already looking at this slide, and the second word is bad. However, it's not that bad. So, you know I love chemistry, so we need to talk about chemistry for just a second. And this slide talks about the chemistry of hormones. In other words, how are they made up? Now, there are three main classes of hormones. There are amino acid-based hormones, steroid-based hormones, and prostaglandins. If it's an amino acid-based hormone, it usually includes proteins, peptides, or amines, or a mix of those three things. Steroid-based hormones are made from cholesterol. They have that cholesterol functional group on them. For those of you who are in AP Bio, you recognize functional groups, and that is just for you. But for those of you not in AP Bio, just know that steroids contain or are made from cholesterol molecules. Prostaglandins are made from lipids, so they are fat or oil based. So those are your three classes of hormones, and the reason that that's important is because hormones act differently based on how they are made up. So hormones can do one of two things. They can either activate genes. Dang, what does gene activation mean? Do you guys remember where genes live? Here's a cell. Cell time. Hey, Sally. Okay, here's a cell. Inside the cell, there is DNA. Ooh, that turned out pretty good. I'm proud of myself on that one. Okay, so there is DNA. And in order to activate genes, you have to be a hormone that can actually go all the way in here and mess with the DNA. So, if you are that kind of hormone, you are activating genes, and if you are a gene-activating hormone, the product is new proteins. New proteins being made. So, gene activation causes new proteins to be made, and we will actually talk about that in a minute. The other type of thing that can happen, or that hormones can do, is they can cause a secondary messenger system to happen, which we will also talk about in a minute. So that, they don't get to go in and play with the DNA. So here's another cell. I'll draw the DNA in there again, just because it was so good the first time. Let's see if I can do it again. That one's not as good, but whatever. Okay, so secondary messenger system, the hormone is running around the bloodstream, and it finds the cell membrane, and it actually attaches to the cell membrane and causes enzymes to catalyze reactions across the cytoplasm. So you're actually not getting new proteins with secondary messenger systems. That's only direct gene control. Secondary messenger systems, you end up getting chemical reactions to happen across the cytoplasm that weren't happening before. So let's look over here at this. I don't want to skip this slide. Okay, so we kind of already talked about this. Okay, so things hormones can do. What can you do? Okay, you can change the permeability of the plasma membrane. And if you change the permeability of the plasma membrane, then things that were going into the cell before can't come in anymore. And some things that were getting locked out before can now go in. So the cell is getting different ingredients from the intracellular or interstitial space into the cell that wasn't going in there before. Also, obviously, your hormones can cause proteins to be made, can cause enzymes to be produced, can activate enzymes. If you remember from HBS, or maybe you talked about it in biology, an enzyme is a biological catalyst. Good thing I can spell. Is a biological catalyst. And a biological catalyst is anything that makes a reaction in a cell go faster. So if you think back a long time ago, you've probably seen this before. If we have a pot and we're going to make some macaroni and cheese, maybe I'll make macaroni and cheese for dinner. Let's pretend like we have this pot and we put some water in it, and then we put the macaroni noodles in it. I'll even draw some for you. And we just left it sitting on the counter. Could we still make macaroni and cheese? The answer is yes, you could. But it would probably take about 3 days for your noodles to be soft enough for you to make macaroni and cheese. So what do we do instead? We heat that pot up and we cause the water to boil, and that catalyzes the heat, catalyzes the reaction of softening the macaroni so that you can make macaroni and cheese and you can eat it. So that's a catalyst. Like heat in itself is a catalyst, but a catalyst is anything that makes a reaction go faster. Back to pink. Okay. Your hormones can also stimulate mitosis. Mitosis, remember, helps us grow. Okay, so if our cells are undergoing mitosis, that means we're getting more cells, and that's how organisms grow. Also, your hormones control secretions that your body produces. So if you think about some of the changes during puberty, some of your sweat glands and oil glands are activated, and they produce some oil and stuff like that maybe they were not producing before, and that causes like breakouts and stuff during that time until you get it under control. All right. So let's go back to, okay, so we have 3 different types of hormones. We have amino acid hormones, steroid hormones, and prostaglandin hormones. And we also have 2 different ways that these hormones can act on our cells. So let's just review those. But if you look here, gene activation is only done by steroid hormones. So steroid-based hormones are the only ones that can go into the cell. And what do they do once they get into the cell? They go play with the DNA. And why do they play with the DNA? So they can turn genes on. And when they turn genes on, new proteins are made in your body that were not made before. And remember, the proteins our body makes us who we are. For instance, there are proteins that make our hair brown or our eyes blue, or you guys know all about melatonin or melanin. So if we look at that, those proteins cause us to change and develop into who we are. So direct gene activation is made by steroid-based hormones. And if you look here, just as a quick review, slightly better picture than mine, but I will say that the DNA doesn't look half as good as mine. It doesn't really look double helixy. Mine's way better. Let's take a look. Yeah, mine's way better. Okay, anyway. So here is a steroid hormone, because steroid hormones do direct gene activation. And steroid hormones, look, bypass the plasma membrane, in across the cytoplasm. What is this purple thing out here? Oh, the purple thing is the nucleus. Why is it going into the nucleus? Oh, to go play with the DNA. And if you look here, the DNA is altered and genes are turned on, which causes messenger RNA to have a new code to take out here to, oh goodness, what are these red things that are making proteins? Correct answer, ribosomes. Okay, so the messenger RNA has a whole new code to take out here to these ribosomes to make new proteins. So, what is the product of direct gene activation by steroid-based hormones? They make proteins because they activate genes on the cell's DNA. Now, the other type is secondary messenger systems, and those are all our non-steroid based hormones. So non-steroid. Let's go back up here and check. So if it's a non-steroid hormone, what type of hormone is it? Oh, look here. It must be our amino acid ones and our prostaglandins. So if it's a non-steroid based hormone, the only thing a non-steroid based hormone can do is secondary messenger systems. So secondary messenger systems involve enzymes and reactions across the cytoplasm. So if we look at this picture right here, here is a non-steroid based hormone. It goes to the receptor site on the plasma membrane. As you can see, there's no nucleus, there's no DNA in here, no DNA. And what happens is this non-steroid based hormone just hangs out on the cytoplasm. But when it goes into the receptor site right here, it causes this enzyme to release or to give extra energy to cause reactions to happen. Remember, driving forces and all reactions have, if you remember, they have, like this is something that you guys will know that has something similar. Remember when we were talking about neurons and how they do this thing, and there's like rest and depolarization and repolarization and hyperpolarization? Well, if you remember, there was a threshold potential. Remember, it had to be stimulated over a certain amount in order for it to go through the whole depolarization, repolarization, hyperpolarization thing. Well, chemical reactions are exactly the same way. They won't happen unless there's enough energy available to drive the reaction. It's actually called activation energy. So when these enzymes, let me erase this mess that I made for you guys. Okay, there we go. When these enzymes contribute extra ATP, then that activation energy is reached, and chemical reactions can actually proceed. So that is secondary messenger systems. If we go back here, secondary messenger systems, if I asked you what a product of a secondary messenger system would be, you would say enzymes catalyze reactions in the cell. So reactions that weren't happening before now get to happen. So that's secondary messenger systems. And remember, that's non-steroid-based hormones, not steroid-based hormones. Steroid-based hormones can only do direct gene activation. So let's look back here and see if we've covered everything today. So we did a review. Yes, we did glands and hormones in blood and target cells and receptor sites. Make sure you know that. We looked through all the slides that were super important, and I put them here so that you guys can review. And we talked about how the endocrine system is a hierarchy. From here, the next things that we're going to be doing in class is finishing filling out information about the glands listed right here. And we are also going to be looking at the choice board that I gave you before we got out of school. And I will be giving you a test over the information that I covered on this slide. We will probably be doing that tomorrow as far as e-learning is going. But you guys can watch this video as many times as you want. And as always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Hope you guys are staying safe. I miss you guys a ton. Talk to you later.